It is now 6:16. Call to order the Community and Business Relations Committee. All members of the committee are present. We have one item of business this evening. Item number one, Morris closure for trick or treat. Rebecca, if you could please walk us through the months of discussion regarding the potential possible closure of Morris for trick or treat.
I'll keep it a little shorter. This item came with a recommendation to the village board. It was discussed at the village board and then remanded back to committee. The last discussion relayed that there was not the availability of trustee Ursink to lead a block party application, which is how it was recommended through an application process for the group to do because of prior time commitments. And so then there were multiple questions from the village board with regards to process. So we are back here at Community and Business Relations. I will state, and then I'll let you discuss, but where I'm at the conclusion of committee time before we go into budget sessions prior to village board meetings. So we'll be out of this meeting with a recommendation committee.
Okay. Thank you very much for the update. Trustees McGovern or Ursink, do you have thoughts?
Sure, I will. Trustee McGovern, I was kind of saying my thoughts earlier. If you've got.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear more, just to kind of have it be on the record. But I think you raised some good points about, hosting a big event takes a lot of work and a lot of planning, and maybe this one is not quite ready, even though we have been talking about it 5 months. It seems like a simple thing to do, just close the street down and let people trick or treat. But as with all things government related, it's more complicated than that. So, I'm interested to hear both perspectives. I guess, honestly, I'm kind of undecided. I was very much in favor of it when this first came up. But if there's kind of like nobody in charge of it, that seems to me to be a problem, and maybe we should just do it next year. But we could also go ahead this year and call it a pilot project and just kind of try it out and see what issues there are and make it better next year. But like I said, I like the idea of it. Maybe it's just a little bit too big of a lift for right now, with it being early September. We've kind of a lot of these key details we haven't really worked out yet.
I think, in the long run, just being a resident on that street, I kind of wear multiple hats in this conversation. Because I do, I've helped with the feast, I do the farmer's market, and unfortunately the farmer's market is what kind of keeps me sort of occupied. It's the last day of the farmer's market on this particular day. Hold on, let me just look at count. Anyways, so I recognize that what's going on right now is not sustainable. It's actually a pretty dangerous situation. I typically sit outside my front house for the 3 hours I have until I run out of candy. And it's absolute chaos. Kids are almost getting hit by cars. People are running across the street. There's all sorts of things happening that are probably not great for the neighborhood or not, we clean up alcohol bottles. It gets crazy and it's dangerous. There was one year, the Shorewood PD came out and there was somebody sort of there directing traffic, and I felt like that made things run smoother. But outside of that, it's, when you're parking cars on two sides of the streets, it gets very difficult for cars to move, to navigate in and out of Morris. And people get frustrated, and it becomes sort of a very hostile situation, at least on the road as the day goes on. So at first I thought, closing the street, and I still do think closing the street could be a really good idea. And I'm still open to it. I just, as somebody that throws fairly successful events, I know that there's a lot of planning and work that goes behind it. And for this in particular, there's a couple key points that stick out to me that make me sort of hesitant right now, but I could get over. The number one most issue that makes me hesitant about this is when we close the street down, we need to do everything in our power to make sure that it still looks welcoming and open to folks within the community and from outside of the community. The last thing we want to do is look like we're shutting down like the main artery of Shorewood to keep people away from the community. So it could be as easy as a sign. It could be some decorations. There's a lot of little things we could do to like encourage people to come. But somebody needs to do that and be in charge of that. The other, I think the neighbors are fine putting their cars out as barricades, which has been stated as kind of a stipulation for this to protect the barriers. The other thing is I think it's going to be an issue is going to be diverting the traffic that is on Morris, and where does that go on the side streets, because it also gets narrower on the other streets, and it could become kind of problematic. I know that it could work itself out. And I think it's like Morris is already bad, so it's going to be bad in other areas, and it's just one of those things that I think we have to, just know that it's not gonna be great, but it typically works itself out. So that traffic is still going to be there. They're still going to need to figure out where to go and where to park. The other thing is, to make something like this successful, is that we're going to need some sort of activation, right? We're going to need the neighborhood buy-in. We're going to have to make sure the neighbors aren't like all just closing the doors to this. They have to all sort of be interested in this. So I think with like any sort of permit that we pull for a block party, you need at least, 10 or 20 signatures from the neighbors. I do think we're going to need that buy-in for this, but I also think we're going to need a couple people that are sort of in charge. For me, since we would probably be closing the street down, was it Elmdale or Kenwood, by Triangle Park. I think that, activating Triangle Park, getting some music there, getting something that makes it look like there's activity going on, that we're not just shutting down our community, I think is very valuable and very important for this to be successful. We're going to need to coordinate trash cans, bringing all, resident trash cans or a couple of resident trash cans to the front. So there's a lot of little things that I think we need to, a lot of details for this thing to be successful. And I think the neighbors are all sort of like, and if I didn't have the farmer's market, I would 100% be doing this. But I have the farmer's market and it's the last one. So I'm going to be really focused on closing that thing down for the year. I've talked to a lot of our neighbors and people are all like still on the fence about it. We had a discussion this morning about it as far as these details. And I think they want to see it, but they're also concerned about the details. So that's where we stand. I mean, I could go either way with this, but because of the, the things I stated, it's going to be more work than I think, than just simply putting up barricades and letting it figure itself out.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you. I am probably at this point, to no surprise, of a different opinion. I have tonight heard that street is, described as chaotic, dangerous. I mean, it's very clear that we have to do something. We've been talking about this for a number of months. I don't agree. I don't subscribe to the notion that we need to make this a bigger thing than it really is. We need to make sure that the street is safe, right? And that's really the responsibility of. We need to make sure that kids can trick or treat safely on Morris, between Capitol and Olive. And I don't think it requires more than cutting access to that street. So closing down Morris Boulevard. Certainly if folks want to bring out trash cans, I guess they could. I don't think there's any obligation to do something like that. I mean, this isn't a festival from the village. This is just, Morris is not a safe street. Morris is not safe during trick-or-treating. It hasn't been safe during trick-or-treating for a very long time. It's been chaotic for a very long time. This seems to be sort of when government kind of gets in its own way. I don't think we need to do anything special for this other than close it down so that kids can access Morris Boulevard in a safe manner. Now, we do it this year. It's a pilot program. We find out it worked well. Great. If people want to add things for next year, if somebody wants to sponsor something, they want to do more, we can certainly have that conversation. But at a baseline, the responsibility that we have as village trustees is to make sure the things that happen in the village are happening safely. I think we can do that by closing down Morris Boulevard for trick or treating. If people want to add on to that, that's wonderful. That's entirely up to them. But I don't see the need to, find a sponsor in the community and find someone that you can talk to the day of. This is a matter of putting up street signs, closing down a street, which we're more than capable of doing, and then reopening that street after trick or treating is done. It certainly, there will be added traffic on other streets. That happens no matter what, when we close a street. It's just that street, that 2-block stretch of that street is complete chaos. And I don't want to have missed an opportunity to make that street safe because it's not going to be perfect, right? I don't think we should aim for perfect. I don't think we should aim for anything more than our responsibility, which is to make it safe.
Now, if I can, are there, now I love, again, I love the idea of creating a party there. I think it could really work well. So I love that idea. Unfortunately, I don't have the capacity in this particular time. Somebody may, but would you entertain the idea of let's say we restrict parking on one side of the street? What if we, what if an officer volunteer, what if they come out and they help manage that time in that area are there other things that you think could help other than closing down the street? Because I think from what I'm hearing from Rebecca and others that we're going to need to pull a permit. I don't think the village is necessarily they don't want to do this. They need somebody to do this, somebody to hold the block party. And I think that's kind of the bigger conversation is who's going to be that person? And I don't think, we could say, let's do this, but somebody on the village is going to have to figure that out on a Sunday, and that's asking it's kind of asking a lot.
Well, I mean, it's the people that want to do it are us.
Yeah.
It's a village initiative. It's a pilot program run by, that was put forth by the village board. We have staff that are able to put up and take down barricades. We know that.
Will you be there to hang out for the day?
Potentially, but why would I need to be? We're closing down the street.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we're doing. It's not, do you need a contact for a street closure?
Mm-hmm.
When we close down other streets, we don't do that.
There's typically contacts for all the
For a street part, for a block party, sure.
Yeah.
But if the village closes down the street for maintenance or for any other thing, it's just the village closing down the street for maintenance or any other thing. So why couldn't this be the exact same?
Well, we've got 1 minute left.
1 whole minute.
On the agenda. I mean, we have some folks here from DPW and the Shorewood Police Department. I don't know if there's any sort of feedback we could get or if they want to say anything before 6:30.
We'd love to give you each 30 seconds.
It's 6:29 on my clock.
No? Okay. Okay. So we are out of time. We need to make a decision one way or the other.
Well, I say we'll at least go to the full board and have the discussion at the full board. Is that the record? Would that happen then tonight if we next meeting? Well, let's progress it to the full board and
Okay.
I will continue working behind the scenes to do my best. And
Do we want to move it to the board with a recommendation or move it back to the board?
I would say just move this to the full board.
I mean, I think we should make a recommendation. So I'm prepared to move it to the board to recommend that we find a way to do it because it is just a street closure.
I get it. This
see
is
your
just in
point.
front of my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I get it. I mean,
So
I've spent some time on that. street.
Nobody else lives that life down on Morris except for Trustee Ursing. So
I've spent some time on Morris
I get it. I know.
in my life. But if you want to make a motion, sounds like I'll second them.
I move to make a recommendation to the board to close down the portion of Morris Boulevard for Halloween.
I'll second the motion. Any discussion?
I'm going to just abstain for the time being until the next meeting. And
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Nay? Abstentions?
abstain.
Trustee Ursing with an abstention. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 6:31 with apologies to public taking.
All right. We are now at 6:31. Sorry for the delay for the Public Works Committee meeting. We are here for one agenda item this evening, and that is to consider traffic and parking regulation program request denial on North Lorcan Street and East Olive Street intersection. Tonight we have Leanne Butchlick, a Public Works Director, to present.
The initial request was outlined in your memo, the explanation of our response to the resident who is in attendance tonight. Could you ask? I'll let him say his last name because I probably won't say it correctly. But if you want me to re-explain it, I can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to assume that, our resident guest probably would like to address the board.
Yeah. Sounds great. Now, do we have any residents in the room that would like to present or talk, speak on the matter? Just state your name and your address, please.
Thank you. I'm Joseph Santler. I live on Larkin Street, just north of Olive. And I assume everyone's had time to read my submission. So assuming that, I just want to say that, we've got an overwhelming majority of neighbors here that want to see something done with the intersection. We've had 2 serious accidents in under a year. Daily speeding and inattentive driving, just people breezing through here at high speed. And it's putting people at risk who want to see something done, but it seems like no matter what we ask for, and I made sure to ask for every possible form of traffic relief, that the answer is no. And I think that's troubling because the status quo is not working. I did my best to show that. And I'll say it's hard for residents not to get the impression that this is kind of an impenetrable process, which kind of causes at least me to lose faith in the village's responsiveness to our concerns. So I can get more into the merits of this. I don't think that what little process we do have for this kind of request was followed here. To me, it felt like DPW just saying they don't think this is needed. An engineer kind of coming in after the fact to back it up after being asked to do that. I don't think that complies with the process that's in Policy 43, which requires a number of stated factors to be considered. And if we're going to have a process that requires that, a denial that in my view doesn't meet them and a chance to appeal, then this to me is a prime example of an appeal that should be granted. And that's before you get into the merits of, is a stop sign a good idea? To me, like just the process not being followed alone, troubling. But I can get more into the different things we asked for here. And I say we because I had neighbors, consulting on this. So I don't know if anyone.
Well, I can ask the trustees. Trustees, would you like to have the resident here list off the different sort of things that he's asking for? Or have you read?
I mean, I read the packet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We're all familiar, so
Okay.
I appreciate that. And, I sent you my thoughts yesterday via email, and these are very difficult decisions. We have granted a lot of stop signs over the years. So it's not one of those things that we never do. We grant a lot of stop signs. And like I said in my email, I am probably out of everybody here the most frequent user of that corridor, of that area. I live there. I'm a neighbor, and regardless of stop signs, they go through them constantly, every day, all day long, constantly going through the stop signs. So I'm not sure how much a stop sign helps because, we're at a point right now in the village where, we've got so many stop signs where people just don't take them seriously anymore. That's a quick fix. I don't know what the fix is for some of these issues. It's very complicated when you sit out there in the park all day with a child or whatever, and you just see people blatantly run stop sign, your neighbors. They're people that don't live in Shorewood. They're people that live in Shorewood. They're old, they're young. It's literally everybody runs through those stop signs. That stretch on Olive is, I agree. It's not great. I was biking the other day and at that yield sign, an older woman just almost hit me on my bike. So, it's dangerous. I'm not sure how much stop signs help. And the only thing we can do as trustees is listen to the professionals. You know, and I know that's difficult to hear. I suggested replacing yield signs with stop signs. That would be a first thing that we could actually do that would be tangible. It's not a four-way stop, but at least it helps protect people on Larkin in not going into the traffic on Olive. I'm open to this. I really want to see things work. I live on Morris, 4105 North Morris. My child grew up in the front yard playing, watching cars, you know, take that green arrow and speed 50 miles down to the stop sign on Olive. I think I became a trustee because I wanted to figure out a way to calm that traffic. Then I was never able to figure out how to calm that traffic. So, you know, this area, you know, is not perfect by any means. And I'm open to a lot of things, but at the same time, as trustees, we do have to listen to our professionals. We have to listen to the folks at Department of Public Works. We have to listen to the police station. We have to listen to Shorewood Police Department. We have to listen to engineers. And that's how we have to, you know, move forward with certain things. So I'm open, you know, to this. I'm flexible on this idea. Like, I want to see things get done. I'm not sure stop signs help, but would be open to, you know, the other trustees and what they think on this.
I'll go first. You know, I'd like to see something at this intersection. I was really surprised to see in the materials that that intersection is kind of a standard width, because it seems really wide to me. And the way that influences your behavior as a driver, when something is really wide and open, you feel like you can go faster. And so I've noticed myself that, you know, that one just feels really like it's too big. You know, you could drive two semis there side by side and not have any problem. And I came close to getting hit just walking across the street because someone didn't stop and they just drove around me. I just imagine that it's like somebody feels like they can do that because it's a big wide street, and it is just a residential street. So, you know, I'd like to see a four-way there, but more importantly, I think this is a really good example of why we need a neighborhood-led traffic calming program like they have in Milwaukee, where neighbors could get together and say, hey, we're going to assess a fee on our house for the next 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is, so we can have a raised crosswalk, bump outs, or a, you know, traffic circle that will really make a difference, more so than a stop sign would. But since all we have, and that's something I've been pushing for. We've talked about that before.
Mhm.
And I also noted in the materials that, you know, there's been 33 traffic regulation requests plus 3 traffic calming requests in the last 5 years. So that's a total of 36 times in the last 5 years somebody has come to the village and said, hey, you need to do something about this area in my neighborhood to make it safer. And I really think that points to the need for a, you know, broader, more comprehensive way to address these issues, some of which are now in the bike and pedestrian plan that we'll hear more about tonight. But the thing that always comes up is, okay, well, how are we going to pay for all this? I think giving neighborhoods that option of like, okay, we want this thing on our block, we're gonna put a fee on ourselves and we'll get this done. That's been pretty successful in Milwaukee as far as I can tell. So that's my desire long term. But in the meantime, I think we should put stop signs in there for now, because that's probably the best that we have until we can get a more long term.
You know, I tend to look at this as, you know, it's sort of an opportunity to not only take what the experts are saying, but also take what I see as sort of testimony from their shared experience. I agree with Trustee McGovern. This street, whatever reason, seems gigantic. You know, having been driving up and down it for decades now. I don't know. To me, the yield signs don't make any sense. I mean, I'm sure that there's logic behind it, but as a person who's driven those streets, yield just kind of means slow down a little bit. I don't know that there is a foolproof stop sign plan that would exist that everyone would adhere to in this day and age, unfortunately. I have no problem putting stop signs on Larkin, on both the north and south side, as opposed to the yield signs. I think what might make more sense in the long run, as a traffic calming measure, might be bump out, might be some sort of signage in the middle. It could be, and I know everyone can't get enough of them. Could be a roundabout. I mean, there's a number of different things that we could try to do there. But I do agree that it is, sort of a racing strip between, Morris East on Olive. Not doing anything. I mean, the residents are requesting it. They're taxpayers. They have as much experience in that intersection more than probably us. So I'm inclined to go with, I don't know that a four-way stop makes a ton of sense because there are 2 four-way stops a block away either side. But certainly, slowing traffic from Larkin to Olive at the very least makes sense to me. If certainly there becomes an opportunity for residents to, offer to pay more to have things put in, I'm certainly open to that conversation. It doesn't currently exist. I don't know that I love it. Kind of silly for have to pay
Yeah.
streets in that manner. But for right now, I'm more than comfortable putting a stop sign. And then working with the residents and amongst ourselves on the village board, cleaner way to advance some of these traffic calming measures without making it sort of way too onerous for DPW.
Yeah.
You can't,
Yeah.
you can't have a process where everyone gets to just put whatever they want in. But this, I think, is a dangerous.
Yeah, I think in the long run, we all want to see something happen here. We have different groups, the Bike and Ped Safety. It'd be great to look at this in a holistic picture and make sure we're kind of doing a unified sort of, we're not piecing things together, but we're doing sort of a unified, vision for the community because we're working now with a plan for safer streets. And there's a lot that's going to be happening in the future. I think this board's been really open and receptive to, a lot of different bike and ped safety features and initiatives. And, I think we could easily put in, I think, like I said, so would you be open? Is it a four-way stop or would you be open to replacing the yields with stop signs for now and kind of going from there?
I'm open to replacing the yields with stop signs, but if the patterns continues to be a problem, I'm open to absolutely have. And if that doesn't seem to make sense, then what else can we try? I mean,
Yeah.
trying nothing doesn't seem to be an appropriate option.
Because that Morris intersection, Morris and Olive is equally as dangerous. I mean, there is stop sign, the four-way stop right now, but I mean, that is just an afterthought for most people. I mean, most people are just going past those stop signs. Most people go past the stop signs on Woodburn and Olive as well, so.
I totally agree. I can't use that as a reason to not stop sign.
Yeah, no, I get it. I wish there was a better solution to the stop signs because, whether it be a speed hump or, I know we've talked about,
Leanne had her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leanne. Please. Do you want to come around here?
Let's do this. So just as a reminder, the intent of stop signs is not to control speed or reduce traffic speed.
Mhm.
The purpose of a stop sign is to assign right of way. The reason that Morris and Olive is a four-way stop is because the traffic volumes are relatively equal on those 2 cross streets. The traffic volumes on Larkin and Olive, it's a
Sure.
very different situation. So that's why staff actually recommended the replacement of the yield signs with stop signs controlling Larkin traffic. But at this time, we wouldn't recommend stop signs on Olive, again, because stop signs are to assign right of way. and there's significantly less traffic on Larkin than on Olive. Olive is considered to be one of the village's minor arterials. It's a through east-west corridor. And so those are the reasons that from a traffic engineering standpoint, stop signs on Olive wouldn't at this time be recommended.
Thank you, Leanne. Any sort of further conversation, trustees? We're at time. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're always,
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, I'm not trying. Please
never enough time.
conduct your business.
You know, I think in the long run, we are all very sympathetic to this, and we want to make sure that we do the right thing and we make this work. And this is something that we will continue to look at. You know, unfortunately, I think for now, you know, I'd like to move forward with recommending the stop signs, replacing yield signs. But that doesn't mean that this is the end of the story. I think this is just sort of the beginning of the story. And I give you a lot of credit for being proactive in this and very persistent. That's what these neighborhoods take. And I know that you're not getting everything today, but this is a good first step. And I just encourage you to keep going with this. I would encourage you to apply for the Ped and Bike Safety Committee. You know, I think with your energy and what you've done here, you could do probably a lot of good on that in that group. So I would recommend that as well. But for now, I have to try to balance what our experts say and I think what you guys want as well. So I would be in favor of the replacing the yields with a stop sign.
Can I ask, I mean, with what we have, and maybe we don't have anything for DPW. Are there even sort of those placard signs that you could put in the middle of the intersection? I mean, I'm just trying to think of what else can we do to let people know that there are
Yeah.
people crossing that street and that they need to be a little bit more
So
cautious.
that was part of the request. And as I explained in the memo, the Federal Highway Administration's Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Development, which is the guidebook for municipalities and local government to abide by as it relates to signage and traffic control, prohibits the use of those signs in the street without a marked crosswalk.
To which I say, mark the crosswalk. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm talking out of turn, but it just feels very circular.
Mhm.
And as far as a stop sign on Larkin, I mean, I appreciate any effort here, but the bulk of the request relates to speeding and reckless driving on Olive. So stopping people on Larkin isn't really going to deal with the bulk of the problem. And I mean, if this is all we can get, fine, but it doesn't, to me, really address the main problem, sinners.
So Leanne, what would be sort of the downside if we put stop signs at Olive? You mentioned it's a minor arterial. If we just had a four-way there instead of just stop signs on Larkin, what would be the drawback?
You're not following your own policy, I think is the first one that I would point out. Typically we don't want to put stop signs in locations that would encourage non-compliance, right? And if you are doing that on a larger street, more of a through street, you kind of invite that opportunity for people to not obey them, which frankly, that happens all over. So maybe that's not a great response to that question. Like I said, I think my primary my primary answer to that would be that the traffic and request policy very clearly states the reasons for stop signs and states when they're used and when they're not used. And that instance would be in conflict with the policy that you adopted. That's certainly your right. But then maybe we need to take a look at the policy and change it.
Well, President McKay,
No, you had asked. a
Trustee
question.
Kudo?
Oh, no, you.
I just wonder if, a policy is a good policy. Is a good. I'm not married.
No, I mean, I get it.
You know, and if it's find myself,
People are already not obeying the signs on that street. So we're just putting another sign that people, I mean, the signs aren't the solution. There's something bigger that needs to happen over there for this to work, because you're going to get to a point where people are coming down and they're going to start to lose patience for stop signs, and then they're going to completely blow the stop signs at the end. No.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that I believe that. Even if they roll part of it, they slow down. No, it doesn't, you know. DOT. But it's a stop. They want to stop. You know. Gone through this on my street. But now I find myself agreeing in the government. Take the expertise and the experts and you. Citizen.
Yeah, I'm not, in the long run, I'm not going to go against, our board and the neighbors, right? Because I do think like something needs to be done. I personally believe there needs to be more than just a stop sign. And I think an extra stop sign creates even more reckless driving in that area. It's just my opinion. It's my lived experience, what I see in that neighborhood. I do live there as well. I'm also one of the neighbors that interacts with all of that every day. People are not abiding by the stop sign as it is. What do we talk about? Education, engineering, and enforcement. Those are the 3 E's that we always talk about. There's only so much we can do. People are going to run red light or run stop signs. So, but is it going to make people stop more? Is it going to make all, the streets down the road a little safer, like Morris and Olive? Maybe people will second guess going up Olive. This isn't something that I'm going to oppose, right? Because I think things need to be done. We've had many discussions about stop signs. I think over the course of my 6 years on the board, I've talked more about stop signs than any other thing out there. So trust me, like
Halloween, and chickens are working.
Chickens, stop signs, and Halloween. But so in the long run, we really want this neighborhood to be safe for everybody, for the residents, and I do think it's important that we do something there, whether that's a stop sign or not. So if my fellow trustees on the PWC here are interested in moving forward a 4-way stop on the street, I will not oppose that. And we can have this discussion at the full board.
You want to make the motion?
I'll do it. I move to make a recommendation to the village board to adopt a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Larkin and Olive.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And there you have it. Motion passes.
So we will bring that ordinance to you at your next meeting. I would just ask that maybe we consider a conversation at a committee level at a future meeting to really look at that traffic and parking request program. I totally understand the position, but staff is responding to these requests with the criteria that you've assigned to us. And we respond in accordance, and then the denial comes and we have a different direction. Again, your prerogative.
Right.
But I would just like to not have staff always be put in that position.
That's fair.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right, that concludes this agenda item. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are adjourned at 6:55 PM.
Arthur, I was going to say the 3 E's. You forgot the 3 E's, but you remembered. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole of the Village Board to order at 7 PM. All trustees are present except for trustee Arndorfer, who is excused. We have one item on the agenda this evening, and it is discussion on dark sky streetlight fixtures and brightness. Materials were provided in our packet, providing context for this discussion, excuse me, as well as what is being asked of us this evening. So I am not going to take the time to go through everything that was presented to us, but leave it up to trustees to ask clarifying questions and technical questions to make sure that or did you have a presentation? Oh,
I just have there's like a PowerPoint that has,
Oh.
it hits the highlights
oh,
of it.
then that's great. That's right. That was in our.
Yep.
Yes. So let's
So-
go ahead with that.
Yeah, so Rebecca, if you could go to the PDF, and I think it's the second to last page, kind of touches the first 3 slides all together. So brief history, we talked about dark sky lights, August of 2023, determined that we would like to move forward, making all the lights dark sky compliant, the streetlight projects, including Lake Drive. Based on that, I matched current light levels that were already established throughout the village, made those lights the same as they are, but they do not have sort of lenses in them, so they do not diffuse any of the light. I will explain. Yeah, I will explain. So with that, we've been receiving number of complaints about overall brightness of lights. So the lights are adjustable output. So they have 9 settings. How they come from the factory, they are set at the proper lumen level, match what was already out there. Based on previous complaints of the 9 years of dealing with streetlights, that streetlights were not bright enough, cars were getting broken into, can't see anybody, things like that. So we maintained the light level, hoping that with replacing the faded lenses that have been out there for 60 years or more, that the roads would be brighter. So we've received a few complaints that it's too bright, shining into people's houses, things like that. So those 3 options that are up there. So the first one is an option that we did in the phase 1 area. So we lowered all the street lights to level 1, make it as dim as possible. So all the side streets are level 1, all intersections are level 4. We figured that would be the best way to do it, to keep the intersection lit, because we want to make sure that that's lit at night for people crossing the road at night. And then maintaining Wilson at the maximum level, because it's a main road. The second one is to add these covers that cover the LED element inside the light heads that blocks all the light that faces the sidewalk. So in order to do that now, after the fact, so we would have to do it on Lake Drive and the entire phase 1 area. That would cost about $7,000 on top of what we've already spent. And then staff would have to install those.
Quick question.
Yes.
The level 1 lights, have you been receiving the same complaints from level 1 lights as you have from level 4 or 8?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But the thing is though, is that I've told them that we dim them and they say that they don't notice a difference, which I've noticed a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, so once we get to the next slide, I'll
Thanks.
explain a little
Okay,
bit
thank
more.
Personally, I can tell the level 4, this one that's on a corner in my neighborhood is
Yeah.
definitely brighter than L1. Like I don't have one, the one in front of my house hasn't been yet, but all the other ones.
Yeah, so they're doing it as they're installing them. A lot of the ones that were installed, they went back through and lowered them.
So this is something I don't have history on, so I'm just gonna ask so I understand. So I'm looking at options A, B, and C.
Yes,
Option A looks like it's a current state option, so I understand the cost is minimal, very specific. What is the proposal for option A? 'Cause it looks like,
proposal of option A was to kind of immediately deal with the brightness level with concern to side streets. So no one's really complaining about the light level on like Wilson, because it's a main road. Not a lot of houses on Wilson, especially on the west side of that road. But when you have a light pole in front of your house with no tree around it, it's bright. like it lights up the whole area. But instead of it being diffused, it puts it straight down and there's no lens on it. So all you see is like staring at a light bulb. So it's, imagine not having a lampshade in your house is what it would kind of be like.
So option A is case by case. Deal with it.
Option A is like a kind of a standardization that we went to as of right now. It didn't cost us anything because the contractor was already installing it. So all it took was a phone call for them to start doing that now.
Okay.
So it didn't actually cost us anything
Does somebody have to go out to the light to change it, or is it on an app?
physically. Nope,
Okay.
physically you have to go out, take the light head apart, change the dial. Mm-hmm. Correct. I took one apart. It takes about 10, 15 minutes, including driving to setting up the truck. pulling the
But to
light
be
head apart.
clear, in phase one, this has already been done.
Yep.
In the future, it would, when they're installed, if we go with this policy in
Mhm.
in the future phases, this would just happen automatically. It would be set already. Yeah.
So how long has option A?
About 2 weeks. They would
So-
not be set from the factory at 1, 4, or 8. They would all could be shipped as 8, and we would have to do that in the field.
And sorry, are we still getting complaints with option A? Because option A has been around 2 weeks. Are we
Correct.
Still getting this.
Most of the complaints are they do not like the light fixtures. They want to go back to what they looked like, is what most of the complaints are.
So it's an aesthetic complaint, not. a-
Yes, most of the people are like, they're not dark sky compliant. Think of the birds, things like that, when they are dark sky compliant lights.
Okay.
Is,
There's a lot of adjustment, kind of reaction to change.
yes,
Okay.
and I think a lot of it is that they are different.
Yeah.
A lot different.
Mhm.
Like it is noticeable difference.
Yeah. I mean, what I've noticed is it's like when you're right next to it outside, it seems really bright, but you just move a few
Yes.
steps away. Because
And-
it's like a spotlight, then it's not so bad.
And that's
Mhm.
why the light is designed that way, is to do that.
But it is, when you look at it though, it's like, wow, that looks.
Yeah.
good.
So option C is to eliminate dark sky
Could
fixtures
you
and go
go
back.
back over
Yeah.
option B? I'm not sure that we
So,
might have gotten
Rebecca,
distracted.
can you go to the next page? Be the very last one. It's a picture of, so it's hard to see. So those are it's the demonstration area that I installed out inside the
Mhm.
village hall and across the street from the fire station. The one in the fire station has this shield that's installed. So if you look on the picture on the left, you can see the white square.
And
that
that's
is-
this is in our packet. Right.
Yep, it's in your packet. So it's that is the LED element itself. So that's what produces the light. There's actually a thinned cover that is bent that covers that blocks the light from hitting the sidewalk. So it's called a house side shield. That's what it is. When I order it, that's what it's called. So what it does is it blocks the light from the house. So if you're in your house, you shouldn't be able to see the light element itself, but it does block all the light on the sidewalk. So it won't be like how it is now to where it broadcasts it in a circle.
Does that go against kind of why we want these lights? Because we want to,
Correct.
want the
So
neighborhood to be
whole
lit up
reason
and-
why, so the whole reason why the light heads are the way they are was based on complaints that I have been getting for years of like site, like a lot of residents wanted the lights lit up so that way their neighborhood is lit up. So that way you're safe walking out at night, their car doesn't get broken into, things
Yep.
like that.
we've heard the same complaint.
Yeah, right. So it's like, I mean, so this is why we went the way we did. So we can address the house side shield part of it and blocking the light into people's houses. So that way they don't see it because there's no lens on it. So I get it. Like if your house is lower than what the street lamp is, like you're sitting in your front living room, a lot of the houses are pretty close to the parkway. Like I get it. I do get it.
Mhm.
I understand. But we have to come up with
Yeah.
something to make it uniform. Because
Mhm. We can't go house by house or
yeah,
that
like, for
is
staff
chaos.
capacity wise, like going house by house, I want my street light brighter
right.
because I
That's-
parked my car underneath it, but the person across the street from you does not want that. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do we mitigate?
Could you go over option C just for the
Yeah,
group?
so
that-
option C is to go back to how the light heads are now. And get out of dark sky. So all future phases, we would,
LED, but
They would-
shield, but
they-
lenses.
Yes, so remember how Wilson Drive looked like before we replaced them?
Yeah.
Those were LED lights with lenses on them, so that's what we would go back to doing. So in order to do that, I mean, it's relatively easy for all the future phases, but the phases that are already done with light heads that we already bought and purchased, we would have to take all those down and replace those at $800 a crack.
Okay, so because we have, I just want to thank you.
Right.
Are there any other technical aspects that you want to
Yes,
provide?
so we also reached out to KL asking for recommendations of what brightness should be based
Mhm.
on safety and, what's the International Illumination Engineering Society. So they recommended about essentially setting all the lights in the village in the side streets at level 7.
Mhm.
And that's it, to maintain the lumen level that the old fixtures were meant to be at.
Wow.
Mhm.
I think it's just the
Which-
years of wear on those lenses have made it so
Correct. So,
diffused
like,
that it's.
Yeah.
Bulbs deteriorate over time, so there's actually like a chart that you can use to see what that lumen drops off to until it is you replace it and with new lenses.
Yeah.
So what they were meant to be at 6,300 lumens is what we would set all light fixtures to.
Could I just ask in general, what was the level of lumens for the ones?
6,300.
Level 7.
It was from a technical,
Yes.
but from a perception
Right.
place because the
correct.
glass,
And on top of that, so we're also changing the color of the light.
yeah.
Because I can't get something that matches.
Soft yellow is not a.
Right, so
Okay.
especially for LED bulbs, like I can't get an incandescent bulb that matches at 1900.
Mhm.
So the ones I'm installing are 2700, so they look a little bit more white.
So the,
Mhm.
I just want, so the lights, the old lights
Mm-hmm.
were set to 6,300
Yep, that's how they
Mhm.
came. There's no adjustment. to
with
this.
the lenses
Mhm.
being as old as they were,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that obviously degrade. 6,300, do we have an
Covered
idea?
with bugs,
Yeah, do we have an idea of what the actual
output.
output was from the pedestrian or?
Zero.
Probably half
About
is what it
3,000.
would be until it is like we were. So
Okay.
like when we would put up new light heads, it was a noticeable difference,
Mhm.
like the old style ones.
Yes, trustee Ursink.
Is there, I'm just asking questions here. Is there a product that they make that could go up and cover the, like a slight diffuser that could cover the LED? Because I think it comes down to just the LED being so like stark, right?
Yes.
Is there something that can just go up there and cover the LED, but still give you the same sort of lumens, but not so intensely with the LED?
No. So the only thing that we can install is those house
Just-
side shields.
Got you. Okay.
So
Yep.
I encourage you guys after the meeting tonight is
Mhm.
walk across the street, especially look at the one at the fire station, and that's the one that has the shield in it. So you
Okay.
can see a noticeable difference.
Yep.
I personally think level 1 is way too low.
Mhm.
It kind of negates the fact of why I have streetlights.
Mhm.
To me, it's way too dim. Right, but I'm looking at it from a driving down the street, walking down the street sort of
feet,
deal,
yeah.
not,
Mhm.
I don't live across from it.
So
Yes.
direct next, or start,
Mhm.
start talking. So out of curiosity, as we look through this 3 options, does staff have a recommendation as to which option would be best to pursue, most cost effective to pursue, most future looking to pursue? I'm just kind of curious as to the viewpoint. of
To
DPW.
me, it would be option A, is it seems to be the best compromise to what it is. It doesn't require any more money than what we already have. I can add house side shields. I can add those shields.
That
to-
option B though?
That's option B, and we can do that from the get-go for the rest of the phases
But
where
that
we
also-
install them.
Just to be clear, that also detracts from light on the sidewalk,
Correct,
illuminating the sidewalk.
correct,
Creates another.
correct. To me, it's just option A, leave them the way they are. And changes
Thank you.
change.
Trustee Stokbrand?
So the price here is about 7,000 for a retrofit on phase 1
And Lake Drive,
and Lake Drive. Okay,
Mhm.
so how much does that work out to per fixture?
$25.
$25. Okay,
That's how much that shield costs.
okay. But on the new one, prices are up, $75 per fixture, I see.
Well, that's an estimate with having the contractor install them with the phases. So you can't buy it already pre-installed on the lights. It has to come, at least as of right now. So
And so-
that's why it's 75 bucks.
And so what do you think the time frame is? I mean, I would like to be able to think that if we wanted to have a few shields in storage somewhere, are they big, are they bulky? Could we have them in case that take it, it's room? Could you please give me a shield for $25?
I already have 15. Yes, yes.
And so, like, for example, we had gotten some emails from people. Did you put one in front of the gentleman's house?
No,
Like by,
no, not yet.
That one's difficult because it's out.
Correct.
I mean, it's just,
Yes,
just
Mhm.
really difficult.
right. And in the past, so even with the old lights, we had to deal with the exact same things to where half those lenses were actually opaque. So like, especially some of the apartment buildings on Wilson, Capitol, things like that, that were right by those apartment buildings, we installed those in the past.
so it's a 5-year install. What do you think the availability in your crystal ball for supply chain? We decide in year 5, we suddenly need like,
I mean, it took
mean-
me a month to get 15. So probably quantity, I don't think really matters. It's just all about getting them. And they're not very big. So
From the chair perspective, we have trustee Kudo, trustee McGovern, and there's a gentleman here who would like to be heard as well. So I want to make sure we have time for all that, and I have some very strong opinions that I'll reserve time for.
yeah.
Is there any way, so taking the light as, 4 sides of the light, is there any way to just put a piece of sheet metal
No.
or something on one side just to block?
No, because that's how so I already thought about putting, like, I have shields for the old lights. They look just like it.
Right,
But how the dark sky lights are, in order to make up for the base of it,
right.
they're too big. So I can't even install what it is I currently have in there. Like, yes, I could put, like, I'd have to cut sheet metal and put it in there,
It's
block
okay.
the light from the one side.
Kidding.
But
Yeah,
there's
but it would-
nothing that, yeah,
but it would do the same thing as this little plastic cover that I'm putting up there already, because it would just block all the light on the sidewalk. At that point, there's also no real way for me to actually secure it in there.
So if I may, I hear the board problem solving, which is great. But I would also like to, this isn't our last time to talk about this, and staff has brought 3 options. So before we get to kind of problem solving, I want us to just weigh in on the 3 options, or if we're ready to do that. Trustee McGovern?
I mean, that's what I was gonna say, is just, I would lean towards option A. Maybe even just have them all be level 1. I mean, I've been walking all around my neighborhood at night. I take my dogs out. They seem plenty bright to me, the ones that are level 1. I don't feel like anyone's at risk of having their car broken into because the streetlights are too dim. And the ones that are level 4 seem really bright. So, we do have a lot of people that live on intersections or even main roads. So I would, really, I think level 1 is good. And then also having that flexibility for someone who's got a lot where it is right up next to your house. I mean, mine is probably going to be really close because it looks like there's a new light pole that's actually closer. So maybe I'll need one of those. I don't know. But I think overall it's, there's all these different competing needs for
Mhm.
streetlights. Got, people wanting to feel safe with something bright enough, but not so bright that you can't sleep, and dark sky. And it just seems like option A is probably the best way to address all.
Kind sir, I forget your name. I know I saw your email, but would you like to be heard at this time? If you come to the microphone and say your name and address and speak as loud as you can so that the recording can pick it up.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. My name is Stephen McCarthy. I live at 4349 Wildwood in the first district in which lights have been installed. I've been a resident of the village for 25 years. I'm really glad, by the way, to hear that these options are being considered. I'm not sure that they're the full list of options that should be considered, but I'm glad to see that these are being considered. I also have a little bit of a question about the idea that the shield on the resident side would block the lighting on the sidewalk. Wouldn't that have to do with the size of that shield? It wouldn't have to cover the entire lens, or in this case, no lens, on the side of the homeowner. It could come down 4, 6 inches and come down to the point where it meets the property line, which is 2 feet on my home side of the sidewalk. I'm not asking for not having lighting for safety or anything like that. I just don't understand why it's, excuse me, a black and white situation on this panel on that side of the house or that side of the fixture.
I'm sorry, are you talking about like lowering the light pole?
And I was talking about the
Like-
shield.
The shield.
So it's not,
itself.
Wearing the
Come in
shield on
different
just
sizes.
one side.
No, it's only one size.
what size is it? The full size of the side, or is it halfway? This light still,
No, so it just covers the LED element.
oh God,
Make
okay.
Yeah.
sure you're speaking into your microphone.
Yeah, so it,
Was that what I was talking about? And you said they don't make it like that, where they just go up there and they just,
you were close-ish.
okay, okay.
You were close-ish.
Got you. Got
But
you.
it's a piece of square plastic and it has louvers in it that come down like this. So it does, so what it does is forces the light to bend. So it bends the light
Got it.
away from the
Totally
side.
get it now.
From the
Sorry
house
about
side.
that.
That's okay. I'll explain myself. I was thinking of an actual panel, say black aluminum that would fit the frame on the homeowner's side, and maybe it would cover approximately half at the most of the opening on that side in order to direct the light where it should be within the public right of way, not into my property. And I'll get into that in a little more detail. Approximately 3 weeks ago, a new streetlight was installed in my front yard. Since then, I've had conversations with Dan from DPW. And I've also talked to contractors who are installing various components of the light. I've also reviewed the preliminary design study prepared by the project designers, KL Engineering, in order to understand how this solution was arrived at. As I scanned the document, I realized there was no overall project goal statement, and I only saw one reference to upgrading Shorewood aesthetics and another about controlling light pollution. From my perspective, neither of these were implemented in the delivered project. The the preliminary design report is a standard engineering document with engineering jargon and no reference to incorporating basic lighting design principles. So appropriate to a project of this scale and level of importance. What concerned me most was there wasn't any reference to engaging a lighting design consultant. And that leads me to think that no lighting design consultant was included in this design process. The only reference that I could find regarding aesthetics was when the village board approved the plan and only mentioned dark sky concerns as an aesthetic issue. My understanding of lighting design principles doesn't include dark sky. I think of it as a social and environmental issue. And as a birder, I wholeheartedly support this concern. Residents understand the need for safety, maintenance issues, and cost-effective economic solutions. We appreciate the emphasis placed on dark sky lighting. However, based on what I've observed, little or no effort was placed on other forms of light pollution as an impact on local residential property. My personal response to the visual and aesthetic elements of the current street lighting program are: there is considerable unnecessary glare due to unshielded light components. This also results in streetlight hotspots along the length of the street, extensive light pollution beyond the property line, and, and missed opportunity. In my case, excessive night lighting extends all the way to my front stoop. When I go out at night, the experience is weird and not at all enjoyable. And it also the glare significantly intrudes into my living room. By the way, last night I went out and took photos. If anybody would like to see what it looks like on my street, looking at my house and how much of it is illuminated in the front yard, and the effect of that streetlight on the house across from me, and the glare that those individuals have to look at, I very much disagree with the idea that there's not much glare with this current light level. It's not at my experience at all.
Mr. McCarthy, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to keep you, keep time in mind, and you
Okay.
can definitely submit those photos.
Yes.
We won't be making a determination tonight, so you can always submit your remarks in writing.
All right.
So if you could come to a close, I appreciate it.
I will. I think that we've arrived at this situation because a lighting designer consultant wasn't involved in this project. I was about to read a goal statement from another community, completely different from the goal statement. Our goal statement was to do like a really quality project. And that's a little brief, I think, as a goal statement. And I was about to read one from another community that I think is done in a manner that really hits what needs to be incorporated into a project like this. And also point out that a lighting designer was part of, a consultant was part of their process. So I think that that might be a significant reason why we're here today. I wish I could have read more of this to you because I think it would be really helpful as you go forward, but I understand your time period, and I do appreciate your taking this time to let me speak.
Will you submit what you had written, prepared to read? Because as I said, we're not making a determination tonight. And so, and I also think, I know for my sake that, or I know that our practice is to include public comment into our future packets when this comes to.
Right.
So will you do that?
I'd be happy to do that. And please keep in mind that I'm a resident. There's an unobstructed street light right there in my front yard.
Mm-hmm,
No trees blocking it, nothing.
mm-hmm. Appreciate that.
Okay.
If you don't mind, what's your address? I wouldn't mind driving by tonight. just
Please,
to-
please do. 4349 Wildwood.
Mhm.
And regarding this demonstration project out here, I went and looked at it last week. I don't share the opinion that putting that baffle on there is sufficient. The glare to me is still more than it should be. And
Mhm.
particularly, I would hope that this board will do something soon to prevent the glare on the side where the residences are. It's really unacceptable. Thank you.
Appreciated.
Mhm.
We have to, in order to stay on track, we have a few more minutes before we're scheduled to adjourn. We're clearly not going to come to a recommendation here tonight, nor would I force that, given the technical nature of this. It's a lot of information to digest. So if anybody wants to enter any final comments, otherwise I would make a motion to close discussion for this evening and bring it back to the committee of whole, or whatever is the next logical step, but we have to discuss it.
I'm just wondering, when you're talking with your manufacturer's rep or whoever you've got, clearly they've had complaints because now they're offering a baffle or whatever. When you talk to them, do they have another product in development that will also enhance, you know what I'm saying? Are they getting, I'm guessing this is very common. They're installing these lights, people are complaining they're not used to LEDs. It's like the first time you're driving down the street and you see a car with LED lights, you're like, oh my God. So I'm just wondering in their product development, is that something we could see there? You may want to ask them, maybe they're coming up with something that will help with the situation that's a little more than this. I don't know, just a thought.
Yes, the fix would be to put lenses.
Lens.
Yes, so
The
make
thing
them
you
look
just-
like how they look like out there right now, like the old lights.
So you could get those and put those, and is that pricing?
No,
This-
you'd have to change the whole light head. I can't add them to the current dark sky light head. So you'd have to buy all new light.
We'd scrap the dark sky.
Yeah, we would scrap
And
dark
go-
sky and go back to,
What we
I
have
think you're
now.
missing my point. I'm looking for product development. That's okay.
right, but the product development is you
Is to
choose,
give
a-
up on
y-
it.
you choose a different light
Oh,
head. I will look and see if I can find something about like the half shield that you're talking about. I haven't seen anything like that, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
When you were originally talking about the fixture, I thought it was literally like a piece of metal that you slot onto the,
Right.
you know, to block one side. So
Yeah.
what this gentleman described is what I thought we were
Yeah,
doing. So-
yes, you were half right.
Okay. It's typical.
Trustee-
We need a motion to adjourn on.
Um, well, yes, but I also think, we can just adjourn, but I'd kind of like a motion of when this is going to come back to us. So I would like to, or I would just like to ask, first of all, I want to ask the trustees, were doing some great problem solving. And so did you capture anything that you're going to follow up on or?
Yes.
Okay. And then we should adjourn and come back to another committee of the whole to digest all this information and have a further discussion. And I would ask that all the trustees walk the phase one.
You know, it would be really helpful. I hate to say, let's wait till phase one is over, but it would be great to see phase one, see what it looks like, the whole area, and have residents sort of live with it for a month or two and see how that affects sort of attitudes and, you know, so I would love to see just the phase one be complete, and then before we move forward with phase two, we'll know what we need to adjust from there. That's,
Other than Lake Drive, how close are we done?
Like 80%.
80%. Okay, my
Yeah.
other question is, what's the time sensitivity for ordering phase two? Are they already done?
So that goes out November. Yeah, so like end of October is when phase two goes out for bid. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
so we have time.
And then when daylight saving time? I mean, when it suddenly is like,
Yeah,
that's kind of a,
it'd be nice
right.
to have light.
How about we say duly noted?
Yeah.
So we'll take that
I mean,
under
I can get-
advisement.
the covers whenever.
Yeah.
okay.
Like that's not like
So-
wholeheartedly attached to any project, whatever. I can
Yeah.
order those whenever we
Just
want.
sometimes you, now they can't get them any.
I
And I
think,
do have to say, I think it would be bad, spend all this money on lights and then jerry rigs.
Mhm.
Correct.
Doesn't
mean-
your warranty, then doesn't your warranty?
I think
expire?
there's some really good brainstorming. I don't want to limit creativity. So what I'm going to say is any additional thoughts, email them to staff. Copy Rebecca so that we're capturing them, and we're going to bring this back to committee of the whole. But at this time, I would ask for a motion to adjourn so that we can move on to the business meeting. for
And
this
don't forget to look at the demonstration. across the
Yeah,
street.
at least, definitely demonstration and then.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, motion by trustee Kudo, seconded by trustee Stokbrand. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, committee of the whole is adjourned at this time. 7:32. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the village board to order at 7:37. Thanks for your patience as we ran overtime with our committee work this evening. Has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed and posted according to law.
And I will add that all trustees are present this evening. So thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, and thank you in advance for your time, talent, and patience as we conduct business this evening. We have several orders of special orders of business. 4A, presentation of safe streets and roads for all demonstration activities. The final report from Director Griepentrag and Strand Associates. So there is no action this evening. We are receiving this report as the final action of a grant that we participated in. This was prepared and provided to us in advance. So let's hold all questions or comments until the end, please.
Thank you, President McKeag. And Becky, I'll just tell you in advance the slides. That's easy enough. So once again, this is the Village of Shorewood Safe Streets and Roads for All demonstration activities final report drafted by myself, the Planning and Development Director, alongside with Strand Associates. Eric Knotson is here, and we will be tag teaming this presentation. A full report is in your packet, as well as all the appendices, as well as links to all comments that were received, which the board also received back in July. So there's a lot of information that I'm going to synthesize down into hopefully some useful lessons learned and next steps. So next slide, just a quick project background and selection criteria. This project was brought to us from Milwaukee County Department of Transportation as an opportunity from the United States Department of Transportation for a federal program called Safe Streets and Roads for All. It was a grant opportunity that we applied for $50,000 of funding, of which $10,000 was a local match. The village board did approve that application and the local match within their budget discussions. We utilized prior planning activities to guide the projects that were selected, namely the pedestrian and bicycle master plan, as well as the transportation and parking analysis and subsequent requests that staff had received from them for particular areas of concern within the village. Based on that, we did select 2 different types of traffic calming activities. 2 of them were horizontal with respect to narrowing the roadway themselves. So traffic circles were installed along previously identified neighborhood greenways, namely North Murray Avenue, as well as in intersections where requests for the installation of 4-way stops had been received. Curb extensions, another form of horizontal narrowing, were installed where complaints about parking too close to the intersection were received that blocked pedestrian visibility within the crosswalk, as well as located along routes to schools, namely Lake Bluff Elementary School on East Kensington Boulevard. And then lastly, we did install a vertical element, which requires drivers to go over a traffic calming device. That was located along a road of well-known cut-through traffic on Morris Boulevard leading towards Menlo. So we did 2 types of projects, 3 different types of installations. Next slide. This is just a general map showing that we did install traffic calming and or pedestrian devices within all 4 quadrants, quote unquote, of the village. So we tried to get some geographic dispersal and make sure that all areas of the village were considered. Next slide. I did mention that the application was submitted and then subsequently the projects themselves were approved after the fact. So the types of projects and locations were taken to the Parks and Public Spaces Committee in October, and then ultimately provided a recommendation for in November of 2024. After that recommendation was granted, we did confirm with the North Shore Fire Department and the school district that they had no issues with the proposed installations, at which point we brought it back to the village board in December. As you might recall, that meeting, the village board actually did modify, I think very smartly, one of the locations of the curb extension along East Kensington Boulevard. So with that approval, we pursued the costing and purchasing of the equipment, as well as working with Strand on the final designs of the project. We did also bring a communication plan to the village board for approval, which included a project website and newsflash items on the village website, neighborhood notices to anyone who lived within 250 feet of an installation. We utilized the village manager's memo, which has over 3,000 subscribers weekly, as well as the library display board, which receives a lot of traffic. We also posted a social media. The village has 5,700 Facebook followers and roughly 900 X followers. And then lastly, I do plan on writing an article or working with the editors of Shorewood Today on presenting this final report once again within the Shorewood Today. As part of that also, we did do an online survey, which helped us guide part of the recommendations and lessons learned. Over 541 responses were received. Next slide. In terms of project involvement, a lot of different departments were required to help with this project. So I'm here presenting on behalf of everyone that worked on it. We did once again contract the village engineer specifically for this project for design and monitoring services, both pre and post installation. We are very thankful for the Department of Public Works for being able to install as well as quote and purchase the equipment. Over 131 hours were required to install the installations over 5 days. They were also required to maintain, and they will be required to remove the equipment in the next month. So we are very appreciative of them prioritizing their time for the project. Once again, planning worked on grant facilitation and public involvement. The police department worked on enforcement, and we did consult with North Shore Fire Department and the school district throughout. With that, I will turn over to Eric, who will go over the designs for each of the three installations.
Hello. Yeah, so speaking of the traffic circle designs, each of the design elements for this project, whether it be the traffic circles, the speed tables, or the curb extensions, really follow the core elements of the Federal Highway Administration, NACTO, and Manual on Uniform Traffic Control
If you could
Devices.
come closer to the microphone
you.
and talk as loud as you can. There's something about that mic that just doesn't pick up, and we
All
have a
right.
few people joining us online and they won't be able to hear.
Okay,
Okay,
will do.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I was noting, FHWA, Federal Highway Administration, Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and NACTO are kind of the leading design elements here. So speaking solely of the traffic circles, each of these traffic circles were implemented at existing stop controlled intersections. I know some of the questions that we received after the fact were, should the stop control intersections be converted to a traditional roundabout? And the difference, I'll say, with a temporary installation of a traffic circle and a roundabout is that stop control can exist. And so part of this temporary installation was to see how it functions with the circle in the existing condition. Similarly, the design vehicles were a core aspect of this. As Bart had noted, we worked with the Shorewood Fire Station to determine what size trucks they would need to circulate through these roundabouts and these traffic circles rather, as well as checking with pedestrian vehicles and making sure that all the movements were accommodated. Additionally, travel lane widths, to speak further on that, we followed the minimum traffic travel lane widths through these circles, and then proposed signage. So there is the keep right signs and some approach signs for the circles as well. Next slide. For the speed table designs, these locations, as Bart had noted, there were two locations that were preliminary evaluated. One was the north side of the Morris roadway, and then one south of the Shorewood High School. Both of these were designed in comparison with one another, and ultimately the goal was to keep them as far away from residential driveways as possible so that they could function in a more natural way. Ultimately, the one closer to the Capitol Drive intersection was the one that was installed, and this was just installed again following those core design elements, making sure that design speeds were into account here. So you can traverse this at a 25-mile-per-hour design speed, which is the traveled speed there. So the goal is to be able to slow vehicles, but still have vehicles comfortably traveling the roadway and not have that aggressive table. Additionally, proposed signage was installed here as well to again enforce the speed table as part of this design. On the next slide here, we have curb extension design. So again, the curb extensions were accounting for more of an unconventional narrowing of the roadway. And so, you know, where you would typically have a parked car, the curb extensions are designed to provide more corner clearance at the intersection. So you have a greater, what we like to call sight triangle, and you can see further along each aspect of the roadway. So the temporary installations here were to again mimic that parking installation. Next slide. All right, and I'll pass it back to Bart.
So then just briefly going over the project costs for each of the installations. Obviously, this was a driving factor in terms of how many installations we could put out there. The traffic circle seen here on this slide is the traffic circle that was installed at East Kensington Boulevard and North Murray Avenue. It entails rubber curbing, cones, signage, et cetera. Each of these traffic circles that were installed, and there were two of them, cost approximately $3,900 of equipment. And that is without installation costs. As I mentioned, DPW did spend considerable time installing it. So had we not had them in-house to do that, it would have been considerably more. So once again, the project cost for a traffic circle is roughly $4,000. Next slide. The curb extensions that were installed on East Kensington Boulevard cost roughly $1,700. These are more simple in design per se. They're just posts bolted into the roadway, once again, to mimic a parked car without installation. Once again, there were two of them. So, if DPW had not done them, they would have been a little more expensive as well. And the next one, the speed table was by far the most expensive installation that was installed. As Eric had just mentioned, we had hoped to install two of them in tandem to see the efficiency of them, but we had run out of grant funds, because once again, we were capped on that. So this costs $13,000 to purchase without installation. Of note, I believe there's 861 bolts within the speed table bolting it to the roadway. So that's significant amount of work on DPW's part. So once again, cost is a factor when people request or seek these types of installations. So I'll turn it back over to Eric to discuss the performance evaluation of each of them.
So the traffic circles and speed table performance evaluations, the traffic circles, I guess both of them will say, were evaluated with what we call armadillo traffic counters. So the goal here is to evaluate speeds before and after the installation. So as can be seen on the slide here, we did 72-hour speed counts at each of these locations, both before and after installation. So the date of the counts is listed here. We can see the existing condition is the initial date prior to installation. The post-installation dates are shown as well. For the traffic circles, we planned on accommodating about 2 weeks after the installation, before doing counts in that post-installation condition. The thought here is that, you know, the traffic circles are more of a hard installation there, where they're going to slow vehicles because of their existence. Whereas the speed table, we provided about 3 weeks before we did the post-installation counts to have people kind of get used to the speed table, hoping that we can get more of an accurate baseline for if the speed table did truly slow down vehicles. Next slide. So the counts that we provided are ultimately the number of observed vehicles, 50th percentile speed, which is the speed at which 50% of the drivers are at or below. 85th percentile speed is the same there. 85th percentile speed also is the speed at which you would typically set your speed limit. There's also the maximum speed, the percent non-compliant to the speed limit, as well as the 10 mile per hour pace, which is the speed at which the 10 mile an hour speed at which the majority of drivers are within. Next slide. So ultimately, the data here we'll just look at the Murray and Beverly traffic circle. You can see that in almost all elements, the existing condition has higher speeds outright as in the existing condition that isn't the proposed. There was a minimal reduction in speed, but still a reduction in speed across the board. Next slide. Similarly with the Murray and Kensington traffic circle, speeds were reduced as well. I think what's notable here in both of these conditions was the percent non-compliant to the speed limit was the number that continued to decrease. And then the speed table, if you go to the next slide, at the along Morris Boulevard, that also had a fair reduction in speed. And so each of these elements did show to have an overall reduction of speed of at least a few miles an hour. You know, when you're dealing with a 25 mile per hour speed limit or residential areas, any small variance in the speeds, what we can see here as a reduction is notable. You know, vehicles are typically not going at those high speeds. I would like to note too that you can see maximum speeds across the board were noted as being fairly high. We did reach out to fire and EMS to see if there's a contributing factor there. There was no documented data, but you know, it's hard to tell without you know, being out there and observing some of those maximum speeds. They will happen, and you know, it's kind of an outlier.
And it kind of throws it off. Throws the average.
It throws off some of the data, but you know, when you're looking at like 50th percentile, 85th percentile speeds, for example, you know, you're kind of taking those outliers and excluding them from a lot of the information. So.
And so with the speed table and the traffic circles, one of the goals was to see how it impacted speed. That was not necessarily a stated goal of the curb extensions. The curb extensions were primarily installed for pedestrian visibility. And so there wasn't necessarily quantitative speed data that would help show that. So instead, what we did was just a visual experiment with you know, two parked sedans. They're the inspector vehicles from the village, and showing, you know, before conditions, this is the inspectors, you know, within the crosswalk trying to cross. In the next slide, when installed with the curb extensions, the visibility increases greatly. So that's simply just a visible indicator of how well these installations worked or not. Once again, we weren't intending on slowing traffic per se. We were intending on increasing pedestrian visibility with those two. So then to the next slide, essentially, this is the crux of the experiment here. What is the public feedback? As I mentioned, we get an online survey. It's by no means scientific. It relies on whoever is responding to it, so typically people responding have high feelings in one way or the other. And it's not necessarily all inclusive to all parts of the village, but it's the best that we could do with what we had. So once again, 541 responses. I think that's a pretty good indicator of engagement with the community. In general, there were more positive and supportive feedback provided on the installations, but by no means was that unanimous. Once again, people submitted comments on both sides of the arguments. With respect to the traffic circles, they were seen as, it's too small on my.
What's the turquoise?
Undecided.
Yes, undecided. So with the traffic circles, 56% believe they were effective at their stated goal. 30% believed not, and 14% were undecided as to whether or not that was the case. With respect to general comments received, once again, more supportive than not, but when people did indicate questions or confusion with them, they did, as Eric mentioned, refer to the traffic control situation with respect to why did we keep the stop signs installed in one of the intersections and not make it a four-way yield or things of that nature. So once again, it's more education on that. There were also people that requested more enforcement because people weren't stopping as they had been. So if the goal is to reduce enforcement, this actually did not do that, as at least in the initial installation. So once again, education would be needed to take place with respect to how traffic circles interact with traffic controls. Some people thought they were too large and had impacts on crosswalks and large vehicles. So once again, without the traffic circle, you would go straight down the roadway and the crosswalk was further away from a car going through the intersection. By making the car go around that traffic circle, it was getting closer to the crosswalk, and some people actually felt less safe because the vehicle was getting closer to them. And then there were other comments just suggesting that they thought they were unnecessary. They questioned the location, and some people didn't like the aesthetics. We acknowledged the aesthetics was never going to be a winning design. It was a temporary traffic installation. So if the village were to pursue these in a more permanent basis, we definitely think that aesthetics would need to be taken into consideration just for neighborhood appreciation on that. With respect to curb extensions, these perhaps were the most confused by people. They didn't necessarily understand them. They weren't a straightaway. Once again, they weren't calming or slowing traffic. They were intended for pedestrian visibility. So 43% believed they were effective. 27% were undecided and 29% thought they were ineffective. So these are the least obviously successful of the installations. That being said, the village does have curb extensions within our commercial corridors. And so it's not a new thing for the village. So it's not necessarily something the village should discourage doing because we have it and there's no confusion with those. So it's a matter of getting used to them. People were confused. They thought the roadway had gotten too narrow. However, two parked cars actually made it more narrow than the curb extensions in themselves. Some people thought the poles were ugly and they were not bike friendly because they required the bike to go into the traffic lane as opposed to staying in the parking lane. The bikes belong, within the travel lane as opposed to the parking lane. So that's kind of, counterintuitive there as well. The speed table was seen as the most effective of the three that we installed. Looks like 60% believe they were effective, 19% said they were ineffective, and 21% were unsure. The speed table, once again, was the only vertical element that we tested. When people did question it, they questioned its location, thinking it was too close to the intersection. Once again, we had hoped to install two of them in tandem. This is the one that we ended up being able to install. People thought that we should have more than one. I think that we would all agree with that, funding dependent. And then some people did believe that they weren't perhaps as visible as they needed to be, and they could be dangerous or damage to vehicles, and that bikes, once again, would have to go over them so they were less bike friendly. So in general, we received decent amount of comments on all three of them. Next slide. We did end the survey by asking a critical question in terms of, do you believe the village should pursue additional temporary or permanent traffic calming or pedestrian visibility measures? And that is 65% of the respondents said yes, 19% no, and 15% were unsure. So once again, in general, people are in favor of the village pursuing these types of activities. It's just a matter of getting the right design, the right location, before we install them so that everyone's on the same page. Next slide. With respect to conclusions, I just once again want to reiterate the purpose of the project. was to inform a Safe Streets action plan that the village will be receiving hopefully in the next month or two. A consultant is working on that right now. These types of projects will be reflected in their recommendations moving forward. So we look forward to seeing that. It's also for the village's perspective to provide data for future improvements. So, when roadways are improved or when, perhaps funding does become available, we understand what types of projects do work in our context. And then lastly, it's to learn how to locate and design them. So once again, are we getting the right size? Do we need to have better aesthetics? Do we need to have different materials, et cetera? So that is the purpose, or that was the purpose of the project. Moving forward, the village should continue to implement adopted plans and goals with respect to these types of devices, namely in the pedestrian and bicycle master plan. That does include a recommendation for further demonstration, evaluation, and permanent traffic calming devices, as well as the consideration of a traffic calming request program. So using what we've learned in this project, we will, hopefully pursue those through the village board as initiatives in the near future. And then just the general 5 results that I noted in the report. There were slightly reduced speeds. Part of the reason that they was only slightly reduced is because some of the areas that were tested didn't have high speeds to begin with. So when we hear, that there's a lot of, high speeds in the area, we just need to confirm that is the case before just assuming that to be the case. But yes, all devices did reduce speeds when that was part of their goal. They did significantly lower levels of non-compliance. So as Eric mentioned before, the amount of cars going through these intersections at the required speed limit was significantly increased. So that's a good result. It did reduce maximum speeds, but once again, emergency vehicles could have been responsible for some of those higher speeds. There were positive and negative reactions. The purpose, size, location, traffic control, street maintenance and operations and enforcement were all questioned. Those questions will not go away, so we should prepare ourselves for that in the future. And then lastly, the perceived effectiveness was higher than those who believed that they were ineffective. So when the questions were asked, more people did perceive them to be effective than non-effective. So we just need to keep that in mind, how to reiterate, what the goal of them is and how to show that they are doing their intended purpose. And the next slide, which I believe is the last slide, the next steps. The remaining installations will be removed in September. One has already been removed because it had to be removed for the bicycle criterium, but they have been removed. The village does own the equipment, so if there is any intention for future deployment, staff would seek direction from the village board as to how to prepare or discuss those future deployments. The Safe Streets Action Plan will be presented to the village board hopefully in the next month or two from the consultant working on that project. The village did recently adopt a complete streets policy, and so we will be implementing that for all future roadway improvements, including possible traffic calming devices. As an initiative, staff would look towards developing a traffic calming program with the village board. One of the critical components of that would be to identify funding, where that would come from, because once again, none of these necessarily are cheap or free. So we'd have to identify where that would come from before we, open up to requests. And then lastly, there is an initiative in the village board's 2026 budget consideration for developing and designing neighborhood greenways, which would include traffic calming elements. And so if this is something the village wishes to pursue, that would be one way to, continue that momentum. So with that, I will turn it back over to President McKeag, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm sure Eric has the same perspective.
Okay, questions and comments, Trustee Kudo and then Trustee Ursink.
This is fantastic. Thank you, Bart, and obviously to Strand. I know that Bart, I read the report and you just mentioned that we own the equipment. How did it hold up? Specifically the speed table?
It hasn't been removed yet, and so I think when it's removed, we'll understand better whether or not it is in good enough shape to be redeployed. Yeah,
driving over it, it looks fine, but
yeah, I think driving hasn't impacted as much as perhaps removal might. And I would know. Okay, should be fine, I guess.
okay. The second question, I know they're removed for the winter. I know that other communities have speed table based crosswalk, whatever. Is this something that if we had a speed table in the future, perhaps at an intersection like an Oliver, something like that, is that a structure you could keep out through the winter and still do what you need to do? And if not,
I mean, the one that we installed is intended to be a temporary one. So it was, it is of that nature. There are communities that have these as permanent ones. They would need to be designed with that, maintenance involved. I don't know if you have a particular comment, but happy to turn over to DPW for that.
The one that's installed out there is at a certain width. So I don't have any more to make it fit like
Sure.
wider roads. I can make it fit narrower roads. But with that, it also required drilling 1,200 holes that I'm drilling into a road. So even if I remove it, I put it back, like I have to fill those holes in with something, and then it also degrades the road at that point too. So it actually decreases the road life.
Right.
Oh, and a plow will, it will destroy that thing.
But if it were, okay, but you could plow permanent.
Oh, yeah, permanent ones, yes, we could.
Okay.
This one,
No, like, with this one, it's even lifting the blade, I
Mhm.
don't,
Okay,
it would destroy it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Trustee Ursing?
Yeah, I've got a follow-up on that. So with all of those holes in the street, and it's temporary, would you recommend going back into the same?
I can't,
You can't go back in the same location.
can't go back in the same location.
If we find that this is effective, what would be a recommendation for? Because I found that speed table is probably one of the most effective tools that we've implemented. I would like to see that probably permanent. I'd be in favor of that. I guess we'll have that discussion at a future time, but
Yeah, I guess what I would say is, I think what we don't want to do tonight is get into a possible policy discussion because we're not agended for that.
Yep.
I also don't want to discourage creativity and advocacy. So what I would say is to clarifying questions tonight, but also submit those in writing so that staff can respond. Comments about the overall program that this is a part of. And then future policy discussions would be a future item of consideration and in keeping with our capital budget considerations and things like that.
right,
And
well,
initiatives.
thank you for all your hard work here. This is a fantastic project and look forward to expanding on it in the future. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Trustee Warren.
Yeah, at the risk of belaboring the point, but just because I was not here when this was kicked off and was implemented, I'm very supportive of, these safer streets measures, these traffic calming measures. And I really appreciate the report out and the kind of temporary structures in place. I look forward to this coming back. I know you're developing a plan, and I look forward to discussing that at a future date.
Thank you. And yeah, just to reiterate the point, these were temporary to inform future decisions. So if they are found to be effective and the village wants them, I would definitely recommend that we pursue them as permanent and not installations that we do every year and take out and whatnot. So part of the purpose was to see whether or not we found them to be effective. If we do think they're effective, I think the village now should, find ways to perhaps identify where they should go and how we could fund them.
And that would not be a quick decision. That would be a major policy discussion that would
Correct.
be agended at a future date.
In terms of feedback you got from the community, any specific feedback you can recall on where might have been other intersections that may have made sense for traffic circles specifically?
We did ask that question. Nothing rose to the top in terms of a particular intersection. I do believe that some intersections were noted by specific neighborhoods that had wanted four-way stops. I believe earlier tonight you heard a request for Olive and Larkin. So that had been kind of timely with respect to when the study came out. I would just say, once again, we need to identify a way to prioritize where they should go. Just for reference, the city of Wauwatosa has a recently adopted program that I would look forward to, reviewing that identifies, traffic volumes, crash speed, areas way to schools where you would rank intersections based on how effective they would be. And yes, we can rely on public comment, but I also think that we should look at quantitative data in terms of informing that decision. So nothing particularly came out. We did ask that question. I have a handful of intersections that, definitely should be considered in the future if in fact we do, pursue this. But I think more work needs to be done to identify where those make the most sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Stoprian.
so this all seems to be tied up neatly with the bow, but you said there's still a Safer Streets for All plan. Who does that? We're done, right?
Yeah, so this is the result of the Safe Streets for All 2023 grant allocation. Prior to that, there was a Safe Streets for All 2022 allocation to the county, where they did a countywide plan, and then local action plans were following that. So the countywide plan was adopted earlier this year. Our consultant, Taddy, is working on that right now. And so in communication with them, they initially thought late August, early September. I think it's kind of just got pushed a little bit. So I'm thinking in the next month or two, they would present that, first for review and then for presentation to the village board. I would imagine October, November, whenever we get an agenda.
What we just,
So they had requested this data to work into their recommendations. And so they will have recommendations, including and or beyond this type of information. So yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't really speak to it, but yeah, that's coming in the near future.
it's paid for already?
Correct.
Yeah, so for those of you just tuning in, this is part of a grant opportunity, a demonstration project that we participated in as part of a countywide initiative. So it's collaborative in nature. So at this time, I see a gentleman in the back who is raising his hand. Is there something you'd like to be heard on? Yes, you may. I appreciate that. I don't want to discourage you, and just keep in mind, if you have additional comments, they can be submitted. They can always be submitted in writing because there's no policy.
But I don't
Oh,
know if,
good.
if you have a report from Nelson Benederet. I live on Beverly.
Yeah, I mean, we got everybody's
Sure.
comments.
So I just thought firsthand
Yes.
that I would share some personal observations because I live on Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first week or so that they implemented the circle. So I was at that corner on Beverly heading west. And I had a senior like myself, but she was waving me to go through so she could make an immediate left. So I understand that while you're looking at statistics and charts, there's a practical side of what this is creating. I understand everything has a balance. It's going to create a reaction based on what you're implementing.
Mm-hmm.
So while you may be curtailing traffic, what you're opening the door to as you make your decision in the future is, yes, there were people who were confused and could not make the correct decision. And that opens the door for a safety concern. In the report that I submitted, because I'm on the street every day, it's a very congested street, surprisingly, but yet on other sides, it's a very quiet residential street. So what we have had to endure is looking at the cones. I understand it's temporary, but those 4 months we'll never get back. Also, some neighbors, as I submitted, they have a F-150, very large truck, and then he's got the 20-foot boat right behind it. So how do you, in your mind, justify how that's going to work in that particular space?
Mm-hmm.
So the impracticality of that in that space, I understand it's not going to be 100% correct, but I think that the downside, some of the effects that are happening, some of the neighbors who I've spoken with have said that they actually will avoid using the traffic circle and will actually make the right on the street that's before that. Forgive me for not knowing the name.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've not only created an obstacle or if you will, a structure to navigate around,
Mm-hmm.
but now we're creating a difference of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've created a new traffic
A diversion.
avenue,
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I don't know how do you calculate that?
Right.
And so I just was sharing some of
Appreciate that.
those. I've been on a condo board, as I mentioned in my thing,
Mhm.
624 units, big building in Chicago.
Mhm.
So I believe me, what I dealt with compared to what you is a big village, wonderful village of Shorewood. I applaud you, but I just wanted you to be aware that while the statistics may show,
Yes.
there's the practical everyday living with it
Yes.
that really has its downsides.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've done a bicycle lane. I'm sure you've somehow,
I appreciate
right.
if you could.
I almost got killed by one, just so you know, an e-bike that came by.
Mm.
So statistics don't always
Oh,
speak
absolutely.
volumes about what the real life experience is. So
Point taken.
if I may ask, what would be the procedure if somebody if the board decided to pursue that at another meeting, or is it
Yeah.
not practical that you would approach the same people and say, this is what we're thinking of? Do we have any
Yeah.
rights to what goes there? I guess that's my question.
So we don't, that's why this is a huge policy decision.
Okay.
It's a huge policy matter, and policy discussions start from initiatives that we adopt as a board.
Okay.
And they have many, 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 many meetings, as you know, from being a condo board,
Right.
you know. So, and we don't know about any of those things. So
Okay.
your comments are on record.
Okay,
Stay
I appreciate that.
engaged.
And I
Make sure,
appreciate the opportunity,
yes.
but I'm saying I'm not a fan.
We
And I'm
would not
saying-
do it in the dark of night. Let me put it that way. And it would not, we would not take action on this in the dark of night or in one meeting
Okay.
or, you know, so we're
Okay.
years
well, it's
away.
nice. It's a
Yeah.
nice experience. I got to see everybody who.
Please
who
come
does what they do.
anytime. We're here
Okay.
every 2 weeks.
Thank you for listening. I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'd like to close that item and move on to the second order of business, special order of business, which is to consider the Shorewood WLP, Wisconsin-led safe drinking water.
Safe drinking water
Yeah.
loan program.
That's right. Loan program for 2025 -26. So we are being asked to consider a resolution. This is authoring an issuance and sale of promissory notes. This is a procedural necessity to have access to this loan program. So if we do not pass this evening, we do not participate in the loan program. We do not receive a low interest loan for lead service lateral replacement. So you know, big picture, that's what we're being asked to do tonight. I'm assuming that everybody has read the information that was provided. And so with that, I would ask for questions or a motion. Yes, trustee Ursink.
I can make a motion.
Thank you.
So I move to approve resolution 2025-09, authorizing insurance and sale up to $1,891,374, taxable general obligation promissory notes, series 2025B, and providing for other details and convents with respect thereto, and approval of related financial assistance agreement.
I'll second that.
Thank you, trustee. Motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Warren. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Kudo,
Yes.
trustee McGovern,
Aye.
trustee Ursink,
Yes.
President McCaig,
Aye.
trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
trustee Arndorfer.
Aye.
Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you. That closes special orders of business for this evening. Moving on to item 5, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Stokbrand. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. We do not have items removed from the consent agenda, nor do we have public hearing. Item 8, citizens to be heard. This is for items not on the agenda this evening. Are there any citizens who would like to be heard at this time? I'm not seeing anyone come forward. I'll make it clear. If anyone would like to be heard, please come to the microphone and state your name and address, or come off mute if you are attending virtually. All right, seeing no movement, I will close that item and move on to 9, new business. 9A, consider ordinance number 3074, an ordinance prohibiting parking at the intersection of North Prospect Avenue and East Shorewood Boulevard. So this is coming to us through the planning department. All materials were submitted to us for review. I would open it for questions, or unless there's an overview that you want to provide.
Just a quick overview. This was a transportation and parking request by a resident in the area. It went to Public Works Committee at the last meeting. There was a split discussion in terms of whether or not to prohibit parking all the way from the intersection north to the first driveway or only 15 feet from the curb. It was staff's recommendation to do 15 feet from the curb ramp because that's pretty standard with respect to how parking should be enforced if it was an actual crosswalk. But once again, the neighbor had requested all the way to the driveway because it's a unique intersection. I was requested, or I should say, I volunteered to do neighborhood outreach to see whether or not the neighborhood had a particular perspective on that. We sent over, I believe, 20 or around 20 notices. We did receive 6 responses. 4 of them, which is in general terms, agree with staff recommendation that 15 feet was enough. They didn't want to push parking any further than they had to. One person said that they supported the applicant's request as submitted, and one person said they could go either way. So just for your reference, we did do that public outreach, and most people agreed with staff, but we didn't get responses from everyone. So there are 2 ordinances in your packet. One would be with staff recommendation, one would be with the as requested by the applicant.
Did the neighbor respond that the parking would be in front of their particular house?
Yes, and he had provided a photo as well tonight, and he was pretty adamant that he did not want to have to park further away if there was
Okay.
no necessary reason for that.
Got it. I can make a motion here.
I just had a couple questions. I guess 2 questions. One, is there any options regarding striping to provide more definition to that intersection in terms of directing people where to walk to cross? I mean,
So unfortunately not, because the curb ramps that are installed there don't lead to a curb ramp on the opposite side of the
Yeah.
street. And so technically they're not crosswalks.
Yeah, okay.
And so the ones that are technical crosswalks, I believe may have already been striped. I don't quote me on that. I have to look at photos, but yeah, there is confusion in the intersection because there's a bunch of curb ramps that don't lead anywhere. That was part of the reason staff did recommend or agree that, signage should be installed because signage will be easier to understand in terms of whether or not you can or can't park there. We did install stop ramps or stop lines at the stop signs that previously had not been there. So hopefully there's more clear definition reminding people driving through that they should have to stop at those stop signs because there is some visibility issues with the stop sign and street trees and things of that nature. But to answer your question, I don't believe that crosswalks would technically be in the area.
okay. And is there an option to put up,
I think there's a lot.
come on,
Please
Sandy.
continue.
Is there an option to install like a reflecting sign at, where Shorewood bisects, what is that, Prospect?
Prospect.
Similar to the one where Jarvis bisects, Maryland?
I would defer that to DPW. I don't know that offhand particularly. It's not part of the request, but we could definitely look into anything else that, could improve the intersection if so directed.
Yeah, I'd be interested in exploring, I mean, if we could amend it to explore that.
I guess what I would recommend procedurally is if you feel you can't take action on what's in front of us tonight because you want more information, to make a motion to defer in favor of and make clear what information you're looking for. And if that passes, then that's what we would do. Otherwise, and if it doesn't pass, then we would take action on the ordinances that are in our packet
Okay.
and move forward.
Got
I
it.
think that procedurally, that's the only thing that makes sense in my mind.
Okay, no, understood.
Oh, and the attorney is nodding his head.
Yes.
Okay. So trustee Ursing,
Yep. So I'd like to make a motion. So I move to approve ordinance 3074, an ordinance to prohibit parking at the intersection of North Prospect Avenue and East Shore Boulevard as recommended by staff.
Second.
motion by trustee Ursing, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Discussion?
I mean, at the committee level, I had, spoken in favor of doing what the resident requested. It looks to me that really is kind of a confusing intersection, and the first couple of times I drove by there, I was confused myself, and I just think there's enough parking in that neighborhood to, remove a few spaces and in the interest of improving visibility and just making it easier for people who are crossing the street. So I would prefer the option that the original applicant had requested. So if this is the motion, I'll vote no.
Yeah, I would prefer to defer to just look into the option of installing reflecting. I'm supportive of the 15. just based on the neighbor feedback that we received.
Procedure.
And I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm pretty familiar with that intersection. You know, there's at least one neighbor who, I mean, years back had a bad wipeout that was car related. You know,
Trustee Kudo?
Might be asking a question. I might be going where we're about to go, but this doesn't, I mean, passing this evening doesn't preclude us coming back. Trying to address it. This is just the parking. The other stuff.
And in committee, the applicant was here and she was kind of a little bit indifferent on the actual, this motion. She just wanted, you know, she's kind of getting what she wanted here and she thought she was kind of maybe pushing it a little bit for this extra space, but she was actually fine with it, you know, and had not gotten resident or neighbor feedback. And the fact that the neighbor whose house this is in front of would like to keep that parking spot, I kind of, you know, side with the neighbor.
Before I'll recognize Trustee Warren, but before that, just to say that was my point too. So the delineation here is that the ordinance before us concerns with the parking in that area, not with signage. And so
Right.
that could come
Yeah.
back in front of us
Yeah.
and it would be a future item of consideration.
Okay. All right.
Trustee Warren?
Yeah, not to belabor the point because obviously we want to move through the agenda, but this is an issue of first impression for me. It makes sense to take action and support the motion tonight of the staff recommendation, but I'm certainly very supportive of coming back and looking at additional options because it is in fact a confusing intersection.
Yeah, or it might be a tapper request. So anyway, we'll figure out the right procedure if, should you choose to pursue that. Great, any further discussion? If I'm in favor of the motion as presented and in favor of moving forward. There was a
Yeah,
second.
Trustee
Stokebrand.
So we have a motion, we have a second, we have discussion. This is a roll call vote.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee McGovern,
Nay.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
president McCaig,
Aye.
trustee Kudo.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. Closing that item and moving on to 9B, consider agreement with 2026 Oakland Reconstruction Project Inspection and Construction Management Services. This is pretty straightforward. We have reviewed inspection services before. At this time, I would open it up for questions or a motion. Unless there's anything that Director Bushlick would like to call to our attention. Okay. Trustee Ursink.
I move approval of an agreement with Benish for 2026 North Oakland Avenue reconstruction, construction, inspection and management services in an amount not to exceed $430,832.23.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Stokebrand, opening it up for discussion. This was a nice bid to review just because it seems like such a win. That doesn't always happen. All right, hearing no discussion, no further discussion. This will be a voice vote, right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 9C, consider proposals for available space in Village Center's lower level. This comes to us from the Strategic Initiatives Committee. We are being asked to give direction on how to proceed based on two proposals that were received. One would require rezoning, the other not. Trustee McGovern, is there anything you want to add from the committee recommendation?
I mean, it's all in the packet, but we had been directed to explore options for revenue. We did an RFP. There were two options. One, which would have provided revenue with a zoning change. That was the real estate office. The other was the Senior Resource Center, which is also a really good proposal, but wouldn't have offered revenue. So that's why I recommended to consider review of proposals that don't have currently permitted uses in the zoning code, just because we had been, directed to find revenue. But that's kind of the two issues there that, that's how it came to this committee, to the full board as a kind of a divided vote. Not really the merits of the project, but just that one was revenue, one.
All right. So questions, pre-discussion, a motion, trustee Ursink?
I came out in favor of, letting the Elder Services Board advisory board take over the space. I think it just isn't in line with our, community goals with the space here at the Village Hall. I know we're losing revenue, but I think it's really important for that program to grow and to succeed and to have that permanent sort of home here, and the things that they can do with our residents and with the community sort of outweigh a little monetary value that we can get out of that by putting sort of a real estate agent in that space. So I see the value, and I'm going to be supportive of allowing the Elder Services Advisory Board to move into that space.
Village Manager?
Just a point of clarification, the purpose of, and the action that's listed on the agenda is not approval of any proposals. The strategic initiatives had requested to pause on review of proposals to get clarification as to whether the village board was willing to consider non-permissible uses at right now and change the zoning code for that reason. So based upon the decision tonight, that review group will then go back to review the proposal or proposals that are remaining. And as there were follow-up questions and things that needed to be reviewed, and provide a recommendation then to the Strategic Initiatives Committee that would then be forthcoming to the village board.
Thank you. That's really important direction. So to keep focus on, we are being asked if there is an appetite on the board to consider rezoning that space. And that is what we're being asked to consider this evening. So, Trustee Stokbrand?
Yeah, I'm going to support this, and I'm prepared to make a motion. I think we just need the flexibility. To me, it's just not that binary. It's either the Senior Resource Center or the Realty Group. There's a fair amount of space down there, and I would also like to see if we could get the doors fixed so we would also have more flexibility with that one large room for more different sizes of groups. And I'm interested in seeing if we can do something that offers something for intergenerational uses. So I see this as just allowing us to be more flexible going forward. We might still be able to do something more for the Senior Resource Center. I think there's a lot of space down there. So I like the flexibility. So I'm prepared to make a motion if you're ready to.
You may make a motion. Is it, anyway, I guess I saw a couple of hands, so let's take these comments and then, Trustee Ursink?
Yeah, so if we rezone this property, it being P1, does that then reflect all other P1 properties, however we rezone this?
Yeah, similar to the commercial kitchens.
Right, okay.
zone.
Well, I would be opposed to that, so.
That's my understanding from the review of the packet. Trustee Warren, did you want to be?
Yeah, I was just trying to think through this because again, I'm not on the strategic initiatives. I align with a lot of what trustee that I think would be really great to let the Senior Resource Center expand into that space. The lost revenue for me is more than offset by the community benefit there. So I really, at this point, don't see a need to engage in what would be a complicated rezoning of this in order to solicit more proposals. I think we have what we need in front of us. So I would reject proposals from for my vote. We'll go to.
And I misspoke. Thank you for that. I said the Elder Services Advisory Board. I think I just glanced on that, but you were right. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Stokran, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move to allow the review of proposals for non-permitted uses subject to a zoning change.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Stokbrand, seconded by Trustee McGovern. Discussion at this time regarding the motion on the floor. All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against?
Nay.
Okay. Show if the ayes were Arndorfer, Stokbrand, McGovern. Any other ayes. The nays being Warren, Ursink, McCaig, and Kudo.
Okay.
Yes.
I can make it the other motion.
Yes.
I move to reject proposals from non-permitted uses.
Second.
Motion by trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Ursink. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So motion carries 4-3. The nays are Arndorfer, Stokebrand, McGovern, ayes Kudo, McCaig, Ursink, and Warren. All right. That concludes new business this evening. Moving on to reports of village officials, village president. There is a by-board meeting on September 17th, 2025 at 4:30 PM at the Shorewood High School. I believe it's in the media center, or it could be in a conference room, details to follow. The by-board, as you'll recall, is typically 2 trustees and 2 school board members that meet when agreed upon to discuss, items that may be of common interest, possible collaborations. The focus of this by-board meeting is going to be largely budgetary and planning in nature. And I am available. Oh, so our 2 representatives from the village board are myself and trustee Arndorfer. Trustee Arndorfer is not available.
Correct.
So I am welcoming, first of all, the meetings are open, so anyone can attend. If somebody would like to attend, I would definitely like at least one other trustee to attend in trustee Arndorfer's spot. As a reminder, this is an unofficial board with no decision-making power and no action occurs at these meetings.
What's the date again?
September 17th at 4:30 PM. You don't have to decide tonight, but I wanted to make it known that I would like at least one other trustee to attend, but we can have more. And we always post a possible quorum. Furthermore, just as an aside, I believe the superintendent will come and address the board to provide information on a number of studies that they've completed, as well as their updated strategic plan. And we talked about having that in October. So I don't think I have anything else to report at this time. Trustees? Yes, trustee Ursink.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate, as we get further into the season, I would like to sign up for a community booth at the Shorewood Farmers Market. So we all would have a chance to engage with residents at the farmers market. It's been just an incredible season. A lot of people coming through that market. And I think it'd be just a fantastic opportunity. We've done it in the past, and I think it was worth it last year. And I'd like to do it again this year. We have quite a few dates open in September and October, and I would like to make sure we get at least one, if not 2 of those dates locked down for trustees. So I can send something out to everybody to see who's available, or else I can just kind of set up a date and then folks can join if they're available.
I think I recall you offering to set a
Set up.
date and
Yep.
then anyone who's available will attend.
Got it. Okay.
What's the last weekend of the farmer's market?
It'd be that Halloween weekend. It's the 26th. So, it gets a little cold and the traffic definitely goes down, but I would say, the last couple of weeks here in September would be a good opportunity.
I will say the produce is amazing. I'm eating like a
Right.
bunny at my
Yeah,
house.
right now it's
just
fantastic.
incredible.
The tomatoes are just unreal.
Get me started on the eggplant. Okay. I know it's getting late, but you got to hear about this eggplant that I made. It's incredible. It's like custard. It's like creamy custard. Okay.
Keep going. Keep going. Do you have pictures?
I need
I
a
know
final.
what's going on.
So let's talk about whatever you need to talk about.
Little open mic here.
Mhm. Okay, any trustee Stokebrand, did you have your hand
No,
up?
I'd just like to say I was the employee appreciation luncheon, which is always fun to
Thanks
be
for
at.
the reminder, yeah.
And there's always winners of the Culver's gift certificate. It was always fun.
Thanks for the reminder. Yes, I was happy to be there as well. And I want to shout out to Trustee Stokebrand for pinch hitting because I did not have my readers, so I could not.
I could barely
not-
function because the light was low, but I did have glasses.
I could not complete my duties for that. I only could do half of it. Anyone else? Any other reports?
I was at the new resident picnic a couple weeks
was-
ago.
yeah.
Always a fun event. The other people, you know, have recently bought homes here. A lot of excitement for people just starting out here, and it's always a lot of fun. Always a good excuse to go to the beer garden as well. So, nice event.
It was really well attended this year, and I couldn't believe the diversity, just of the different stories of why people came and where they've come from. And one of the people works for one of the attorneys in town. And then later that evening, I saw the attorney and was able to report that his clerk or, paralegal was at the new neighbor picnic. So anyway,
Yeah.
small town demonstrated. All right, village manager.
Well, I am pleased to report that we've been working with the bid on trying to find some alternative locations for the criterium race in 2026. As we all are aware, North Oakland Avenue will be under construction, and I think after going through just a number of different options, I think there's one that is viable. That will be west of Oakland, north of Capitol. They're going to be pursuing some additional conversations with needed parties for approval, but I'm hopeful that we will be able to accommodate a criterium for next year. That's important because of the fact that if we did not, if we skipped a year, it would not solidify it. We may lose our spot in just the race in general. So I'm hopeful that we can accommodate it. We'll see how the rest of their conversation goes. So that was exciting. Then speaking of routes, included in your packet is the July 4th route. Also keeping some of the same staging locations, but proceeding down Murray. So we have that out there. We need to get the information regarding the crossing of Kensington, the bid documents, and that has been completed so that we are ready to go on the North Oakland Avenue road bid construction, which is coming up sooner than you think. And that concludes my report.
All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session? Future items. That's right. It's my big night. 11A, consider new initiative request for organizational study, AKA the Trustee Kudo Memorial Organizational Study. So as you'll recall, Trustee Kudo did ask a few times as a chance to relook at the organization, to have a bigger picture. I thought, why not just get this going, ask for worked out with village manager what that could look like in terms of a procedure. And so the motion is to direct staff to work with the Strategic Initiatives Committee to develop an RFP for this purpose. Supporting this new initiative request this evening does not say you're going to support the study necessarily, nor that it would happen this year, nor that you would support any recommendations that came out of the study. This is not a policy discussion. This is just to get the request that came from the board to committee for further exploration. So with that, I would make a motion to consider the new initiative request for organizational study.
Second.
Motion by President McCaig, seconded by Trustee McGovern. Any discussion? Trustee Stokebrand.
So why would this not be a look? We've already done our two biggest costs. We've already done police and we've already done DPW. So why would we now go back? Are you just going to look at what's left? Library, Village Hall?
So if you'll recall in the memo, this was a request. So that would be determined by the committee, and if whatever the recommendation of the committee, so that's for them to determine.
And
And
we're
it
calling
doesn't mean that
an
you have to-
organizational study instead of reviewing I thought reviewing service levels was where we would start to look for cuts, not reorganizing the village. The organization of the village, I guess
That would be
I'm con-
discussed. It can't be, none of that can be discussed until it's in committee and agendaed for discussion. So that's what I'm asking for the board's either support or opposition to bring the issue to the committee to flesh all of that out. And the opportunity for the good questions that you're asking would be to submit those to the, either to participate in the committee work or to submit those questions if you have a concurrent meeting.
And why do we need a price tag on it?
We are not, so this is it was to give more information, but it is not binding in any way, shape, or form. We thought that if this comes up, that a board member would ask, how much would this cost? And we don't know.
Yeah.
So again, can't be discussed or unless it goes to committee. So the choice is, the motion on the floor is to direct this to go to committee for further exploration. We laid out a possible route that it could take from there. That is not obligated, it's non-binding. It is simply to whether the board wants to support the Strategic Initiatives Committee pursuing a request that was made from, that came out of this year's discussions to date.
It has already got an RFP built in for 2 months.
Possibly. It's non-binding. We thought it would be helpful information. Is there interest in taking a vote at this time?
Please.
All right, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Are those against?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1. 11B, consider new initiative request for review of village manager's office service levels. Also, this comes with a very detailed memo in keeping with our previous discussions around looking at efficiencies. The only way to consider this vacancy as an opportunity for possible efficiencies is to pause on the replacing the position and direct the village manager to work with the Strategic Initiatives Committee to go through a process that we have not gone through before or recently. So I'm asking for the board's support to direct this to committee for further exploration. With that, I will make a motion to consider new initiative request for review of village manager's office service levels. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by President McCaig, seconded by Trustee Arndor for discussion.
So does this mean we are not going to post the job until
It is, I will let village manager, based on my understanding, the job is posted because not wanting to waste time, not knowing if this would move forward, if there would be support on the board. So no time has been wasted. We can proceed as posted.
we've posted a job that we are voting tonight on possibly eliminating?
Yeah. I mean, those are the two facts are the job has been posted because that's procedure. And that this is an opportunity to review efficiencies because there's a vacancy. And so I'm bringing it to the board as an opportunity to explore efficiencies, and we're creating a pathway to do that. So you can support that pathway for exploration or oppose it. And if the motion, right now I don't have a second. So if the motion fails.
Second.
Oh, that's right. If the motion fails, sorry, Jim. you're like-
I'm sorry, can I get clarification? Is Chris still an employee here?
No.
Chris is not an employee here anymore.
Oh, Chris announced that he,
What? I never knew that. I mean,
This is
shit, I'm
the-
busy all summer. I mean, this seems like a bigger conversational topic than the update. So Chris is gone?
So his last day is on September 2nd, and we wish him well.
Well.
Or it was 12.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Yesterday was the second. Was it?
We can withdraw the motion for, I didn't realize that people were not aware, and the memo, perhaps it wasn't clear of why this was.
Sorry, I
being-
mean, I
Didn't read it. So if, I would say that if the board, if not everybody on the board had reviewed the memo and was clear on the transition that was before us, then I would withdraw my motion and I would bring it further. I would bring it forward at another time. Discussion?
I mean, I guess, and this is just my first impression of this. It's a pretty big job to just leave empty. Somebody's gonna have to do that work and fall on Rebecca. So I mean, whether we table this for tonight or not, I'm inclined to support this motion. I just think we need to hire that position. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot of work that has to get taken up by someone else already, you know.
Yeah.
You don't have to support the motion.
I mean, I agree that. I guess my question would be, I mean, we have vacancies all the time from the village. And when the vacancies occur, we don't do sort of a strategic study of that department. I agree, this seems like a massive position on our responsibilities. So I guess to President McKay, why review that position? Why do you think we should review that position now?
We had just finished up. So the memo outlines the conversations that we had within the scope of the 2026 budget.
Yep.
One of those topics was to look at previous and recent and efficiencies and possible efficiencies being pursued or contemplated. This announcement of the assistant village manager taking a village manager role, which assistants do, created an opportunity to look for efficiencies based on the interest that I heard from the village board and a commitment to efficiency and considering service levels. The timing was such that we have a potential now. And so to not let the board know that there's that opportunity, again, I am not asking you to weigh in as to whether you would support any recommendation that would come out of strategic initiatives. What I'm saying is there is an opportunity. The majority of the board has expressed interest in seeking strategies to find efficiencies, to consider service levels. We couldn't do it comprehensively. This is an outlier. This is a one-off opportunity. It won't, we wouldn't hire someone and then look at the organization, look at the village manager's office next year. That wouldn't make any sense. So I'm letting you know as a board that we have this opportunity. The only way to explore the opportunity is to get it to committee. That does not mean that the committee has to pursue anything or make a recommendation.
Oh, sorry.
And it can move as slow or as fast or, so that is all. I don't have an opinion beyond saying to the board, we're in the midst of this budget conversation. I heard a lot of interest and commitment to finding efficiencies and the importance. This is an opportunity we need to bring to the board. What I do apologize for is clearly the communication hasn't been, it's too fast. But to that end, that's the answer that I have for
As
you.
a matter of clarification, I guess I assume that the previous adopted motion or the new initiatives for the organizational study would include the manager's office.
Unless the study, I mean, unless this takes effect and there is some type of internal review of the village manager's office to see if it can be, if efficiencies can be found.
Can I
mean,
call the
for-
question?
From my perspective, I don't know, but from my perspective, this is, I mean, I would rather look at the village organization as opposed to a one-off
Mhm.
office.
Mhm.
So I won't be supporting.
Trustee Stokbrand?
What would the hiring timeframe be? If this is, you put out a call for people to apply, it's the first week in September. When will you start interviewing?
If we could, I just want to make sure that we're staying focused on the motion on the floor, which is, does the board
vote on this?
support this? Yeah, does the board support this going to committee for further
call the question.
exploration?
Can I call the question?
You can. I'm concerned that we're getting
I
out of
think we
scope.
should just vote.
Call the question.
You have to vote on your.
Motion to call the question. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, there's a unanimous vote for calling the question. So at this time, does anyone need the motion to be repeated? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so the nays are Ursink, Warren, Kudo, Stokbrand. So motion fails 4-3. Okay. So at this time, now we've concluded future items, and so we can go into closed session if there is a motion in a second.
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I will move to go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.851E to deliberate or negotiate the purchasing of public properties where competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session to discuss prospective properties for the new DPW site.
Second.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Warren, seconded by trustee Stokbrand. This will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
President McKay,
Yes.
trustee Kudo,
Yes.
trustee Stokbrand,
Yes.
trustee Arndorfer,
Aye.
trustee McGovern.
Aye.
Did I say you, President McKay?
Trustee Warren.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
motion carries 7-0.
All right.
So
close those-
bypass me completely.
Ah,
Please don't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, we're waiting.
Yeah.
For those of you who are joining us online, we're going to now stop recording. There is no official business that will take place after the closure or the reconvening of closed session. Thank you for joining us tonight.